working on the multilateral perspectives,
Mm.
like-minded nations, treaty allies, and of course, they include France. So we need to come up with these things so that as a small country, we can be a big voice too in the region.
That's excellent. Okay. Commodore Tariela, of course, you're the face of the transparency strategy of the country. And what's next now for the Philippines? Of course, we have ex-hosted that already, or have we ex-hosted it already, or what's next now for us, given that, of course, you are an advocate of maritime governance?
Thank you very much, Professor, for a very interesting question. Actually, I already had this question coming from the German ambassador himself. He asked me when, for almost 2 years already of doing the transparency effort, he's like, during the early days of the transparency efforts, you told me, Jay, that the objective is to create awareness among the Filipino people. And right now, according to the most recent Pulse Asia survey, more than 90% of the Filipinos are already aware of
So
what's
we've
happening.
reached at
Yeah, we
least.
have already reached that.
Okay.
So this also now is related to your question, what comes next after that? Well, the transparency effort is just one of those strategies that we're using in asserting our rights in the West Philippine Sea. And the informational, as an instrument of our national power, became a foundation of how we assert our rights. One, we make sure that the international community, we build upon the awareness of the international community by strengthening and deepening our security arrangement with a lot of countries. We now have RAA with Japan. We have different security arrangement with New Zealand, Australia, France, Germany. All of this European Union had become more aware of the blatant violation of the international law of the People's Republic of China that allows them to deepen also their engagement with the Philippine government to strengthen our alliance and also to deter China's growing aggression. So that's one. Second, I would like to believe that the informational that we're doing is still needed for us to counter the misinformation and fake news, the malign operation of the People's Republic of China that is doing almost every day that still sometimes confuse not just the Filipino audience, but even the international community. So for me, the transparency efforts that we're doing right now is just the starting point, and it will still going to be maintained. If the question is what comes next after the awareness of everybody in the world, I told the German ambassador, we can, as a small nation like the Philippines, we can only provide the starting page of our fight against a bully country like the People's Republic of China. The next succeeding pages of our story in fighting against China's blatant violation will be written by countries like France, European Union, the United States, the countries who believe on the international law. As I said a while ago during my speech, it is important for the international community to understand that our fight for the West Philippine Sea is not just about our fight for sovereignty and sovereign rights. It is a fight for everybody who values the international law. And this is the most important thing that the transparency is sharing to the world.
Wow, it gives us a bigger picture of what we're gonna do in the succeeding years. Okay, I'd like to ask more questions later on, but of course, Miss Celine, in your paper, you have the case of for enhanced France-Philippines maritime cooperation, and you emphasize that cooperation must be global and comprehensive, encompassing environment, economy, maritime security, and defense. So, how can France and the Philippines better complement each other's maritime foreign policy priorities so that these pillars become mutually reinforcing rather than addressed in isolation? So, how do you see that?
I think that we have a lot in common, as I underlined in my presentation. So we uphold the rule of law at sea. We face also similar challenges in terms of hybrid warfare and so on, especially at sea also. And we have also a lot of complementarity. We in France, we can learn a lot from the Philippines as being a frontline state with daily challenges. So that's why I think the information sharing and trying to build as many channels of communication as possible would be of very useful interest for us. And also in France, we have some technical, strengths, and also some model of governance that could be of use for the Philippines to develop their own governance in terms of maritime security. So we both have commonalities and complementarities on which we can work on. And as I explained also, I mean, maritime issue, all is connected. You cannot just look at sovereignty or just look at biodiversity and so on. All is connected. So, so we really need to try to break silos and try to make the different institutions to work together. But of course, this is a very huge challenge for every country. In terms of maritime governance, in France, we have a particular model with one key authorities, which is Secrétariat Général de la Mer, so the sea secretariat who has over heading various agencies and institutions that are looking at the various dimensions of maritime security. As you know, we do not have a Coast Guard, full-fledged Coast Guard in France. We have, we say, Coast Guard functions operated by the Navy, but also some police forces and so on. So this kind of unified kind of command and so on can be of interest also to share with the Philippines.
Oh, that's interesting because of the gaps that we are seeing and insecurity. It shows that amongst nations, we complement because of these insecurities and gaps that you are presenting lately, no? In terms of the maritime governments that we are. Okay, Dr. Benjamin, you had a research on deterrence and collaboration of maritime domain awareness. We had a powerful presentation earlier there. In what ways can France and the Philippines advance cooperative approaches to reinforce maritime governance and regional stability in the Indo-Pacific?
On many occasions, it has been said that there was too many maritime agencies in the Philippines, but also in Indonesia, Vietnam, or Malaysia, where I personally reside. I would say it's not so much a question of how many agencies, but how do they work together. So we approach a concept of single point of contact, whether it's one man or one team or one institution. And I think that France could really be maybe not a model, but an inspiration for the Philippines on that regard, because we have many maritime agencies. So Dr. Pajon said maritime constabulary, maritime police, customs, navy, coast guard, safety of life at sea agencies. We have many of them, but at least we have this unifier that is I cannot find the English way to translate the Secrétariat Général de la Mer, but and that I think could be an inspiration. So, for example, eventually, I mean, I don't talk at all for the government. It's really on my personal capacity, but I would think that it could be interesting to have agents from the Philippines, from the various Philippine agencies, to actually not just go and visit, but stay and work alongside French institution of the kind to see in the long term how it works and how they could extract valuable lessons that they can maybe import in the Philippines.
Very good, very good. Thank you for that unifying factor that you're seeing in terms of the gaps and, of course, how could we cooperate more. Okay, let's open the floor to the audience now. Yes, please, sir.
Good morning. I'm Frederick Riet from the delegation of the European Union to the Philippines. As the panel will be aware, next year the Philippines will hold the chairship of ASEAN. In that context, I wanted to check with everybody from the panel what the expectations are regarding the negotiations on the code of conduct and whether there are expectations that will make a difference in the conduct of certain parties in the South China Sea. And the other question that I would have, that in case the negotiations do not progress as foreseen or as wished, if I'm not mistaken, the president at some point hinted at a sort of ad hoc code of conduct from a coalition of the willing, to call it like that, of a smaller party of maritime claimant states. Is there any update regarding that could be shared, or? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are two questions. Maybe Admiral, you answer the first, and then a commenter later on the second question.
Uh, Actually, we are taking our chairship of the ASEAN very seriously, and definitely the maritime concerns is a big part of it. However, I'm not privy actually on what the design, but because our DFA in particular cautioned us not to be too open on the maritime issues, so as not to preempt our president from coming up with more policy guidelines as we near the convening of the our chairship of the ASEAN. So, but suffice to say that again, the code of conduct would be one of the objectives, perhaps, in order to come up with a more binding and more relative significant conduct between nations. And we would like to take this opportunity actually of being the chair of the SEN in the coming this coming year. Thank you.
Commenter, yeah, please.
You know, Professor, I would really love to weigh in on this.
Yeah, please.
But as what Yusek Lopez said, I have been cautioned a lot of times talking about this. So I'm not going to say something about the code of conduct and all. But I would like to, I'm just going to stay on my lane. On the part of the Philippine Coast Guard, we are envisioning for a much more active ASEAN Coast Guard Forum. The Commandant of the Philippine Coast Guard right now, Admiral Ronnie Hilgavan, wants to engage Southeast Asian countries since we are the chairman of the Southeast Asian Summit next year to take this opportunity for all of those Coast Guard organization, maritime law enforcement, to also sit on one table, talk about different issues and not just about the South China Sea conflict, like issues about maritime safety, search and rescue, or environmental protection. Those kind of functions that we have that advance maritime cooperation among Coast Guard agencies. Thank you.
Although I have my own opinion also, but I'll be wearing my hat as the moderator today. Okay. Questions for our French speakers, please? Uh, from the media first, and then, of course, sir. Okay. Please proceed, sir.
Hello, good morning, sir. I don't want to put our government officials here on the spot, but I think I have to ask this now. We're all talking about carrying the torch forward, and then the French, very willing, and other allies saying that they will willing to be to help the Philippines. No? So moving forward, carrying the torch of international law and rules-based order, how important is it at this point that the next leadership of our country would still support these initiatives, and what would be the impact should the Philippines once again turn its back on Europe, the U.S., and the order that's being pushed at the moment? And we've seen the effects. We've seen how dangerous it is. We've seen the impact on environment, as the good professors have already shown. So, at this point, how important is it that the next administration would be carrying the torch forward in a similar manner and upholding the transparency that we enjoy right now?
So for sure, that's for the Filipino speakers.
But we would also like to hear from our members of the academy.
Okay, thank you very much. As you have observed how this administration is handling this situation, and we'd like to think that we're doing it very well. Maybe to answer you, we cannot really tell what will happen come 2028. But the thing is, we really want to educate our people to choose our officials wisely, so that what gains that we'll be having with this administration will not be put onto the drain. So that's one objective, to make our people be intelligent voters. Thank you.
French muna din ako. Or ako na? Thank you, Chino, for a very interesting question. I think we can no longer afford having a president who's going to set aside our fight in the West Philippine Sea. And I am very optimistic that the Filipino people right now, because of the transparency efforts that we're doing for over 2 years, have already made them fully aware that the West Philippine Sea should be an election issue in 2028. That this should be a concern for voters to smartly cleverly identify who will be the next president of this country. We all know for a fact that the sitting president is the chief architect of our foreign policy. And since President Bongbong Marcos was elected with his first policy statement of not surrendering a square inch of our territory to any foreign power, that remains to be very strong. And we have to work so hard, double our efforts, to once again get the support of the international community to make use of the 2016 Arbitral Award to leverage for our position. If we're going to have another president in the next 6 years after 2028, was going to set aside our fight, was not going to engage the United States and even the European Union, and would still choose to go to China 5 times than any other president, I think that would be very bad for our fight. And that is something that will tremendously affect our position. Thank you.
Dr. Celine, and then Dr. Benjamin.
Well, thank you so much. I wouldn't dare to wait on the Philippines politics, especially as the French political situation is quite chaotic too. So, so yeah, maybe just to highlight that, unfortunately, we see a kind of crisis of democracies everywhere. Like mature democracies are now, fragmented, and this is only providing spaces and opportunities for malicious states to advance their own, game. And so we have seen a lot of interference also in the French politics. Now, I think the approach of the French government is changing a little, so we tend to be more also transparent about that, to attribute more the malicious facts when they are, and to communicate about it so that the public opinion also knows. So I think this is very important, to try to shed light on interference, and to have the public opinions knows about that, so that we can better, build a kind of all of society also cohesiveness and approach.
On my side, I would say that I was quite surprised when the Philippines started the transparency policy, and that was one of the reasons that led me to meet and discuss with Komodo Tayala about a year ago. And absolutely, and I felt Komodo Tayala has been quite unjustly criticized at some point about, that you think the transparency is everything, but that's something he never said. And there was this, and for me, the Marcos presidency, this ongoing one, was quite interesting in terms of how they tried to craft a balanced approach to the dispute. And it's not a concern. I'm just curious if the legacy of this presidency will be transferred to the new presidency, and if we can make it into a bipartisan, neutral approach that can be passed on for not just one term to another, but for decades, and increase and develop over time.
Very good. Okay. Yes, sir. Please, from the Coast Guard.
Sir, good morning. I'm Captain Baxena of the Maritime Security Enforcement Command of the Philippine Coast Guard. And for several years, we have been engaging in discussions, dialogue, and we have our transparency initiative. And as we can see, China is also doing its own South China Sea, China multilateral dialogue, making itself the hero of that
They're
discussion.
copying us.
Yes, yes, sir. So, as a policy direction for our maritime governance, how could we, or what should be our measures or countermeasures in the next strategy to make measures on how we counter their strategy?
Okay,
That's all, sir.
countermeasures. Are we ready to sit down and talk to China now?
Well, actually, this is a propaganda war, okay? For one, nobody believes China. Their rhetorics are actually directed towards their own people. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to engage, unfortunately, some of our kind in coming up with a China narrative. pro-China narrative. The thing is, we need to make our people aware of this deceptive or cognitive warfare campaign that China is waging. If you look into the information space, China's already dominated it. That's why we need to make our people aware of what this disinformation or misinformation are. Make our family, our friends, or even your children, because they are into this social media thing, they should be very aware. I mean, cognizant of what is lies, what are lies, and what are not. But the thing is, your own, we should be careful in telling your people, your friends, again, that you be entertain what are the Philippine narrative against this West Philippine Sea issue.
Okay, yes, sir. Please, Dr. Benjamin.
I wanted to add that one of the challenges that the Philippines, Malaysia, or Vietnam have toward China is that China really has a long-term approach to things. They don't mind spending decades to reach their objective, and they don't mind spending time, energy, and efforts. Just to give you a few numbers about the temporality of Chinese action, it took them from 25 years, from 49 to 74, to kick the Vietnamese out of the parasols, and they waited 25 years. Then between 2074 and 88, when they established themselves in the Stratbase, 14 years. And again, after that, 25 more years before the massive land reclamation. I mean, they go with the mindset of 25 years is okay, we don't mind. So they have taken 75 years or since today to establish the situation that they have. Sorry. So that's really one thing. It's not just a point of having a working strategy at point A. We need to maintain and evolve those strategies at the state level, at the same level that they play decades, and that's a really big issue.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Dr. Benjamin. We started our clash with China in 1995. It's like a 30-year marathon now. So maybe in the next 30 years, we'll see what happens
Yeah,
there.
and a final detail about that is very few people know that the Philippines and China negotiated a bilateral code of conduct before the global code of conduct.
Agree.
And if you are familiar with the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, which says that when you enter into a negotiation willingly as a country, you have to behave in words and in actions with the spirit of the ongoing negotiation. And they have never done that. They've never done it for any single agreement that they've negotiated with the Philippines, with Vietnam, with Malaysia, with anyone.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, sir, please.
Good morning. One of the main economic impact of what's happening in West Philippine Sea is probably the price of energy in the country, because the Philippines cannot access to huge oil and gas resources in Reed Bank. 2 days ago, during a budget hearing, Secretary Lazaro disclosed that there were some early discussions between Chinese and Filipino companies for a joint exploitation of those resources. We know it happened in the past.
Yeah.
We know that there is a Supreme Court ruling in 2024 which states that it's impossible to bypass the 60% constitutional rule.
Yeah.
Do you still think there's a room for a joint exploitation in the West Philippine Sea of those resources? Thank you.
Very good question. So I think those are very important on energy security. So what can you say about that, Admiral? Sir.
Well, I'm somehow privy to the arrangements before. I've been with the Department of Energy during the past administration. Of course, there are challenges. One is on terminologies, because joint exploration cannot is violative of our constitution. So even the terminologies need to be addressed, and it is really very challenging on our part, because we tried, we attempted to proceed with our exploration activities. However, again, there are issues that have to be resolved. One is security issues, and because investments are big, it's a big ticket item. For example, no investor would like to shell out millions of dollars and only to to be the project only to be scrapped later on. So those are issues that have to be resolved at the executive level, especially at the Department of Energy level and the security cluster, for example.
Yes, sir, you are recognized.
Hello, thank you. Evan Garcia, retired diplomat. I want to pick up on the comment about the Chinese time frame, because we have a problem. We Filipinos, we have this built-in mentality that we want to finish something within the term of a president, or thinking like that.
6
It
years.
is important that we do not have this, because in this game, the side that imposes an artificial time frame on itself has lost strategically. So in order to transition-proof this policy, you must take it out of this mindset of trying to finish something within 3 years or 5 years, and find the mechanisms to sustain the effort. And the way to do that is to deepen and strengthen public awareness, as has already been said. But this requires money and effort. As was pointed out, the Chinese dominate the space. But this is not a question of armed force. The Philippines can also put more volume out. My God, we have so many news outlets and so many commentators. Let's use them, for something positive. It's not about guns. It's about messaging. Thank you.
Okay, Commodore, the phone microphone is there. Can you expound more on your?
Well, I agree with you, sir, as what Justice Carpus said. Our fight in the West Philippine Sea is intergenerational. This is actually well considered by the National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea and even the National Maritime Council, knowing for a fact that the issue in the West Philippine Sea will not go away by 2028 or the moment that President Bongbong Marcos steps down and the next president succeeded him. Considering that as a very important objective for us to really fulfill when it comes to awareness, what we did right now, besides from the transparency that we're doing of publicizing all the aggressive actions of China, we also came up with different ways to engage students from the universities, the local government units as well. But I think the most significant milestone that we did already is we were able to convince the Secretary of Education now to change the curriculum for the 4th grade, the 6th grade, and the 10th grade when it comes to social studies or araling panlipunan, whenever they talk about the geography, the current events, and the geopolitics. We made sure that the issue in the West Philippine Sea will be taught to the 4th grader about where the West Philippine Sea is. What is the position of, how are we going to support our position historically and all. So all of this are now already finalized at the Department of Education, and hopefully next year, this curriculum will already be given to those 4th grader, 6th grader, and 10th grader. I would also like to share with you, every time I give a talk to all the students in the universities, whenever you engage them, they appear like they are very well aware of the West Philippine Sea concern. But in point blank, if you ask them where the West Philippine Sea is, you will be surprised. Not everyone in the audience will be able to tell where the West Philippine Sea is. And the saddest part is, whenever I ask them, as a member of the Filipino youth, the future of this country, do you believe that the West Philippine Sea is disputed? 8 out of 10 students would say, yes, West Philippine Sea is disputed. And this is the biggest problem that we have right now. Not the big Coast Guard vessels of the Chinese, not the big PLA Navy warships in the South China Sea, but our challenge right now is for us to continuously educate the younger generation, for them to understand what we are fighting for and why we're fighting for it. Thank you.
Right. That's very good, because I have an upcoming textbook on politics and governance, and one chapter is allotted for the West Philippine Sea for the senior high school. But anyway, I just want to pick up about yeah, yeah, yeah. But Dr. Benjamin, you've been around the region. What would be the time frame of our neighbors when it comes to their China problem, and how are they going to resolve it? How do they see it, basically?
I would say each country has its own strategy. Malaysia, Vietnam, or the Philippines have very, very different strategies. If I take Vietnam, because I think they are the most visible at the moment, they were very laying low for quite some time. But after a triple alignment of planet, they changed their strategy entirely. And when I say alignment of planet, let me explain. The first one was when they resisted China in 2014 and 2019 over those very massive naval incidents, when China tried to deploy this oil rig near Triton Island, and 5 years later when they tried to deploy oil and gas exploration boat near Vanguard Bank. So after they resisted and actually repulsed the Chinese, that was the first thing. The second one was China to reorientate its attention toward the Philippines. And the third one was the COVID. And when those three things were aligned and there were much less boats in the Vietnamese area, then they started their land reclamation at a massive scale. And they didn't just reclaim one feature here, one feature there. They reclaimed 13 at a time, at the same time, so that the Chinese would try to impeach such or such convoy, but they could not impeach all of the convoys reaching their destination. And we have seen that now, now that we're in 2025, Vietnam has passed from 200 to 2,000 hectares of above water surface under their control. So 90% of what they have today didn't exist 3 years ago. So it demonstrates that when you have a will, when you put the resources, the political, financial, human, and technical resources together, you can really achieve something, and you can actually confront China. Not militarily, not with a lethal force, but you can do it. There's ways to do it.
Okay. Other questions? Maybe I have one question for Dr. Celine, and then a general question for all of you. Okay, Dr. Celine, as from a European perspective, what do you see as the key geopolitical risks of trade disruption in the Indo-Pacific, and in what ways can stronger Philippines-France cooperation help mitigate these risks and promote regional stability?
Well, we already discussed a lot about that, but yeah.
What's the bigger immediate threat that we are seeing now as we go on with that maritime governance in the Indo-Pacific?
Well, we see you're talking about trade and
Yeah.
so on. So we have several choke points, and of course the South China Sea, Strait of Malacca, and also the tensions in Taiwan Straits are very concerning for us, because any kind of disruption will really affect deeply our economy. There is more than 40% of the European trade that's going into the South China Sea. So that's why I think we were talking a little bit earlier about how the politics, domestic politics, can can infer on the priorities of the governments. But I do think that for France, looking at the Indo-Pacific, our interest will stay there. We have a deep economic interest. We have sovereignty interest as well, and that's why the cooperation with the Philippines is so important. It's a win-win kind of cooperation. We are deepening our knowledge, our understanding of what's going on in South China Sea, to have a better awareness of the situation, and we can also collaborate with the Philippines to reinforce the capacity, to reinforce the knowledge and the resilience of the country, and to push back on all challenges.
Okay. For the last question for all, because we're running out of time. You are very good when it comes to your sound bites. What would be the one word to strengthen maritime governance in the Indo-Pacific from your answer? One word, each one of you.
One word is we need to be inclusive.
Inclusive. Okay. Commodore.
Transparency.
Okay, transparency. Dr. Pajon, what's your one word for this one?
Sure, coordination.
Coordination. Very good. Yeah.
Well, cooperation.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, our credible speakers from the first session. Thank you.
So what was it? Inclusive? transparency, coordination, ITCC. We've now got a new acronym similar to ICAD, illegal, coercive, aggressive, deceptive. Now we've got ITCC. Thank you so much. Fantastic panel. Great insights from everyone. And thank you. Oh, hold on. For especially for Commodore J. Tardiela for driving home the message that the Philippines can no longer afford a leader who will set aside the WPS. Well, the WPS. I am supposed to call for a photo, and may we invite Ambassador Marie Fontanelle back on the stage along with Professor Dindo Manhit for a very quick photo. No, it's okay. Thank you also to our audience for your great, very sharp questions. Lots of takeaways from this first panel. Again, picked up some messaging around how we need to have a long-term strategy when it comes to China. China is, China is of course playing the long game here. Do we go to Lenar? Do we go straight to break? Okay. We're gonna pause for a quick break now. There is coffee and hot beverages outside. And then we're gonna reconvene at about 11:25 for the next panel. So please grab some coffee, grab some colleagues, have a good chat, and then come back here by 11:25. Thank you.